Sunday, August 3. Go and worship the Lord. On the night of Passover, divine judgment fell on those not covered by the blood, as we read in a previous lesson in Exodus chapter 12, verses 1 to 12. No one escaped because of position, education, social status, or gender. Punishment struck all families, from Pharaoh to slaves, and even the firstborn of the animals. The pride of Egypt was in the dust. Read Exodus chapter 12, verses 31 to 36. What strange request does Pharaoh make, and why? Even as he gives permission for them all to leave. Exodus 12, beginning at verse 31. Then he called for Moses and Aaron by night and said, Rise, go out from among my people, both of you and the children of Israel, and go serve the Lord as you have said. Also take your flocks and your herds, as you have said, and be gone, and bless me also. And the Egyptians urged the people that they might send them out of the land in haste. For they said, We shall all be dead. So the people took their dough before it was leavened, having their kneading bowls bound up in their clothes on their shoulders. Now the children of Israel had done according to the word of Moses, and they had asked from the Egyptians articles of silver, articles of gold, and clothing. And the Lord had given the people favour in the sight of the Egyptians, so that they granted them what they requested. Thus they plundered the Egyptians. How interesting that Pharaoh, in telling the Hebrews to go and worship, adds this request, and bless me also. And bless me also? Why would he, the king of Egypt, a god on earth among his people, ask that? It sounds as if he's finally catching on to the power of the Hebrew God and would like to benefit from it. However, how can God bless him while he is steeped in rebellion, stubbornness, sin, and pride? Sure, he finally gave his consent, but it wasn't out of submission to the will of Yahweh. It was instead out of defeat. He wasn't repentant, as his later actions will reveal. He simply wanted to stop the devastation that was destroying his kingdom. Pharaoh was humiliated. And, given the tragic circumstances from the worst plague of all, he gives permission for Israel to leave Egypt. What he refused to grant all previous times, and no matter the suffering his actions brought upon his nations, he now permits. And the Egyptian people, understandably, are eager for the Hebrews to go as well. As they said, Please leave, or else we shall all be dead. God, meanwhile, made provision so that the Israelites did not leave Egypt empty-handed, but with things they would need for what, in the end, would turn out to be a much longer sojourn than anticipated. The Egyptians gave the Jews these precious articles only to hurry the people out of the country, but the items were wages that were long denied the Israelites for centuries of slave labour. Surely, for the Egyptians, the price of getting the Hebrews out of their land was cheap enough. And so to finish the day, how often have we repented of actions only because of their consequences, and not because those acts were themselves wrong? Why is that not true repentance? How can we learn to be sorry for the sins that, in a sense, we get away with, at least in the short term?
Sunday, August 3. Go and worship the Lord. In one of the most beautiful and comforting passages of Isaiah's prophecy, reference is made to the pillar of cloud and of fire to represent God's care for his people in the great final struggle with the powers of evil. The Lord will create upon every dwelling place of Mount Zion and upon her assemblies a cloud and smoke by day, and the shining of a flaming fire by night. For above all the glory shall be a covering, and there shall be a tabernacle for a shadow in the daytime from the heat, and for a place of refuge, and for a covert from storm and from rain. Isaiah chapter 4, verses 5 and 6, margin. Across a dreary desert-like expanse they journeyed. Already they began to wonder whither their course would lead. They were becoming weary with the toilsome way, and in some hearts began to arise a fear of pursuit by the Egyptians. But the cloud went forward, and they followed. And now the Lord directed Moses to turn aside into a rocky defile and encamp beside the sea. It was revealed to him that Pharaoh would pursue them, but that God would be honored in their deliverance. In Egypt, the report was spread that the children of Israel, instead of tarrying to worship in the desert, were pressing on toward the Red Sea. Pharaoh's counselors declared to the king that their bondmen had fled, never to return. The people deplored their folly in attributing the death of the firstborn to the power of God. Their great men, recovering from their fears, accounted for the plagues as the result of natural causes. "Why have we done this, that we have let Israel go from serving us?" was the bitter cry. Patriarchs and Prophets, page 283. When light from God, strong and convincing, came to make known the great I Am, Pharaoh was compelled to yield. But as soon as the pressure was removed, his unbelief returned and counteracted the great light God had given. When he refused the evidence of the first miracle, he sowed the seed of infidelity, which, left to its natural course, produced a harvest after its own kind. Afterward, the king would not be convinced by any working of God's power. The monarch hardened his heart and went on from one step to another of unbelief until throughout the vast realm of Egypt, the firstborn, the pride of every household, had been laid low. After this, he hurried with his army after Israel. He sought to bring back a people delivered by the arm of omnipotence, but he was fighting against a power greater than any human power, and with his host he perished in the waters of the Red Sea. Christ Triumphant, page 103.
And remember, God is always faithful.